This is the Arri Sky Panel S60. If this is like the only light you can bring in for a really quick corporate down and dirty shoot, this is great. This softbox, you're good to go.
So it's a big LED.
Yeah.
And today we're kind of showing it as perhaps a replacement for an HMI. If you guys are familiar, so we're shooting against daylight, and what we were doing earlier, I can show you here with this color temperature meter. You know, the color temperature of a source like this, the sky, not the sun, the sky. About 6,000 Kelvin. Is everyone here pretty familiar with Kelvin and color temperature? That sort of thing? Yeah. Okay, cool. Color temperature of this, around 6,000. And with an HMI, typically like a Joker, a 1.2, 1.8 Arri, something like that, they take a lot of power, they're very bright, and you can't really change the color temperature of them very easily. You could gel them, you could start bringing out your 1/8 B, you know, half, that stuff's pretty annoying, it's not that good. In this case, with these LEDs, what's really nice about them is that you can change the white balance of them in very fine amounts. So because this is 6100 Kelvin, we can dial that light to exactly 6100 Kelvin, which you can't do with an HMI very easily. And it might shift, and so you could keep on top of that if you wanted to. So we're going to kind of demo this sky panel as an alternative to an HMI. It has a pretty good output with this SoftBank on there, which is really common with it. For an interview setting where you're using daylight, this will do a lot for you. It could be like pretty much the only light you bring, I think, if you do it right.
This is it at 100 output right now, and this is just, they've got removable diffusion screens on the front, so this is, I think, their full diffusion screen. They also have kind of a half diffusion. There's daylight, and then just real quick, right over to where we're at 6100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's dialing that to 6100. I can give it a quick meter. Yeah, so this is, to meter anyway, basically perfectly matching the color of this. And we could white balance the camera to 6100, I guess, if we haven't.
The other nice feature about these, especially in more of a corporate environment where you've got any sort of overhead fluorescent, you've got a green magenta shift. So you can crank in a ton of green to match, or you can dial it out and be really on the purple side of things. We'll set that back to 0. So again, this is probably a little bit of a harder shadow on him than you would want for a sit-down interview, but this is just the standard diffusion. And then we can throw this bank on really quick.
So this is the Chimera, I think medium, the softbox. I think there's 2 sizes.
Yeah, I think they have a slightly larger one than this.
Yeah, I don't remember which one this one is. There's a shallow version, which I feel like that looks pretty shallow, and then I think there's a deeper version as well. Pretty subtle differences, but if you're trying to bring this unit into a location, part of the sell of a sky panel is that it's pretty thin this way, and then the bank is also thin, versus if you needed to do this with an HMI,
you've got a big 6 foot.
Yeah, the head's a little bit deeper sometimes, and you might be putting it through like a diffusion frame and then flagging that. It takes up a little bit more footprint. This thing, you can just kind of roll it around. It's contained, and you get a nice size source. There's a lot of DPs that are rolling with just this light for these types of interviews. And if you want to go one step further, which we can't show today, some people put diffusion in front of this again. You don't have to, but I've been witness to many, many shoots that go down with just a sky panel with the Chimera on it. I think is really nice.
I also think you can do, the way these are designed, and you can take a look after, there's several tracks in there. So this runs on its own little interior track, and then you could also have the standard diffusion inside of this, essentially working as an interior baffle.
But it looks like it's filling it up pretty well, actually. Like,
yeah.
Compared to like an HMI or a Joker, which is more of a spot source in it. There's usually a pretty big hot spot in the middle. This is pretty even overall, given that it's coming out of an area source already.
And again, just kudos to Chimera and Arri for integrating the track system here, where this is totally toolless to switch everything. It's just 2 clips, which again, if you're in a tight pinch, can be a pain. And then Chimera also has different levels of diffusion for this front screen.
We forgot to look it up, but it runs off of wall power, and I think that's kind of rules guiding light when they're carrying lights is like you're not going to need a generator, you're not going to need 220 volt, any of that. So you can run this off of a house outlet. I forget how many amps it pulls. I could guess, but I would be wrong. We should have looked it up. Who can look up on their phone? How many amps does this S60 pull? How many can we put on a 20 amp outlet? We'll know soon. That's the sky panel for interviews. You're going to do a lot with just this light. Pretty much any situation. If you're inside, you can turn it to tungsten. Into fluorescent, you can dial in the plus and minus green.
And just to see kind of like what a mismatch would be, there we're at 32. And right back up to 61.
And it does a whole lot more like color, which we'll look at in the next setup, but in a typical
Yeah.
corporate commercial setting where you're not going to need like purple. This is going to get you through a lot of those things, this one right here.
Yeah, I mean, we can make you blue. I don't think that's a great look for you.
What's the best color one? That's best color? We're still learning. There's a lot of software features in this light, which is not something you normally hear about lights having software updates. But it does a whole bunch of funny, like, not funny, but like interesting features where like if you dim it down, it'll get warmer, like a tungsten light would do. You have to enable that. It can do all sorts of things. We're still learning them. It's a relatively new unit. And we'll look at some of the fun color stuff in a little bit, but there's a lot of new features. This is the best color?
We don't know what that means. This is brightest.
That's
now.
brightest.
Yeah.
So that's like straight 5600,
Yeah.
which is still fine. I mean, the difference between 6000 and 5600 is not
Not the end of the world.
a lot.
Again, this is, I will say it's a heavy head on this fixture, but very manageable, especially if you only need to bring one light in. So we're gonna go swing over to the L10. Slide this guy out of the way.
So this is essentially the Fresnel version of that light.
Yeah, so we can see it really quick if we wanna
Oh, that's the spotlight.
hard spot you. Blind Matt for a second.
And you want to do like the full output thing? That was pretty.
Yeah, so right now we're at, we'll go up to 6100 Kelvin again.
Cool, thank you.
What was it?
3.5 amps.
Okay.
So that's less. That pulls less. So you can run a lot of those off of one outlet.
Sorry, that was for the S60.
Oh. Okay, so 4. Round it to 4. So you could run 5 maybe off of an outlet.
Yeah. And again, same magenta green shift functions. Really nice quick dial between 10,000 Kelvin and 2,800 Kelvin. Let's go back to 6,100. And this is your full output at full flood. So what are we at there?
Are you at 320 on that? Or
Yeah.
So it's kind of like an off ISO, but at 320 ISO, 24 frames per second, we're a 5.6. But 320 is a pretty low ISO.
Yeah.
I mean, we're trying to hold a little bit of the background detail by ISOing down.
And then here's our full spot.
That feels more bright.
The brightness goes up as you spot in on this. Do
This is definitely
By a
brighter.
lot.
This definitely is much brighter.
you want to give me one on that as well?
And this is a 16.
Okay.
Right.
Quarter amps on the outside.
3 and a
Okay.
quarter?
So they're
4 and a quarter? Yeah.
they're both pretty much 4 amps. 5 if you're safe, if you're like a safe person.
Yeah, you're like a little hotter in the background now.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So the cell with these units, if you were to purchase them or rent them, but from a purchase point of view, they're able to replace, or they're able to be at the same time both tungsten and daylight. Whereas when I started in the film industry, I bought tungsten lights. I've owned Arri T1, well, they didn't have T1s back then, but Arri Fresnel's tungsten lights for interiors. And then I actually bought Lee HMIs, which are from the UK. I had to buy HMIs for daylight. We don't really need to do that anymore. This Fresnel can be a tungsten Fresnel or a daylight one, and it does a whole lot more, which we're going to get to in a second. I'm excited for it. I keep talking about it. And this is the area light version of it. So even better than, I'll not say better because I'm friends with all the lighting manufacturers, but slightly more convenient than KinoFlows. KinoFlows changed the industry in that you had a small, low power draw soft light that you could change from tungsten to daylight by changing the bulbs. Has anyone changed bulbs in KinoFlows before? It's not super fun. The Genie interns need to do something or whatever, but like the tubes can break, they come in a big case. If the DP's all of a sudden like, oh, let's just change that right back to tungsten after you just changed it to daylight, that kind of sucks.
Especially on a day like today where it's cloudy, where it's like, okay, not only are you changing bulbs, you're then putting on like a quarter CTB or something to try and get it a little closer to 6,000.
Yeah, and if you've ever dressed like a fat boy or if you do like a 4x2 or the 4x4, you black wrap the ends and you put diffusion in the front. To take that all off, put the bulbs on, it's a huge deal, I think. It's like, if you're having your crew doing that, you're doing a bad thing, I think. With this case, I can change my mind all day, like in so many ways. The Chimera stays on the front, little warmer, little cooler, doesn't matter, really easy. I think
A little
that's
more
it.
intensity, a little less.
Yeah, and you can't really dim Kinos, you kind of can. You can turn bulbs off, but you lose softness, etc.
Same with tungsten fixtures where then you're dimming and losing brightness, but also shifting your color warmer.
Yeah, I think when we were coming up, like, we couldn't even dream of lights this convenient, that you could just plug in, have this, change the colors. We're going to talk about the colors. That didn't exist. So we have them now. Arri builds them. The reason they're a little bit more expensive the Arri lights, and they're a little bit heavier, is because they're meant to last. Again, friends with all the lighting manufacturers. But Arri specifically, you're like, why is this so heavy? The case, this stand, this light is meant to be thrown into a movie truck. Sometimes they get thrown in, and survive and last for many, many years. You know, you'll probably be replacing the LEDs before any of like the tie downs or the harnesses break. It can go on a condor in the wind. Not that everyone's doing that. It will survive. So these lights are built to be investments. Rental houses buy them and expect to use them for a while. So that's why the prices are higher, they're heavier, they're going to last longer. So you're going to pay a little bit more. And if you're on a shoot as well, these aren't going down very easily without a fight. You know? So that's kind of like the Arri mentality when it comes to their lighting stuff, and it shows through all of the lights.
Yeah, I mean, this one travels without a case. This one's fine.
Just on a head card or something.
Just throw it where it needs to go. I mean, don't abuse it. I'm
Yeah.
sure Rule's going to give me a dirty look about that. But no, this thing travels really well. It's cool to the touch, even on this big one. Another difference between this, I don't know if anybody uses the slightly smaller L7. This is all passive cooling, so there's no fan or any noise like that. And again, in a venue like this, not really a big deal. In a small corporate office or in kind of a shoot, low ceiling something, a 2K tungsten fixture, which is kind of the closest output for this, that's going to get really hot.
Yeah.
And you're going to have some talent walk up next to it and touch it, and it's going to be a whole big problem.
How does it look with this diffusion? So that's kind of like...
It's like this is just two little pieces of Rolex clipped in. It's obviously not as soft as this,
Yeah.
but again, for a hard Fresnel light, it's pretty nice. We can also do a quick, if somebody wants to Hollywood something for me really quick and hold this.
I can self-Hollywood it.
You want to just like hold that kind of close?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, we'll make that work.
We gonna bounce it?
Yeah.
Oh, this is fancy. This is gonna be fancy.
Again, these are just kind of like situations where you don't want to load in a ton of grip. You don't want to be dealing with 6x6 frames. We're going to be using that in a minute, and it's great, but it's just a different setup.
Oh, so this L10 might be a little bit nicer for bouncing.
I would say.
You could spot it, yeah.
Yeah, if
that's
I just
right.
spot this in on this bounce card.
I'd buy that.
Yeah.
And you could bind to it direct off me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, do people think this I would say is softer than the double diffusion on the front?
It's gotta be.
Yeah.
How's the exposure on it?
It's actually, am I under?
Everyone on YouTube's gonna tell me if this looks bad, so.
Yeah, speak now.
So help us.
I don't want to be commented on later.
That's cool. I didn't even think about that. It's kind of
Yeah.
a good bounce unit.
It's a great bounce unit. Again, you can spot it and you can flag it off stuff. Again, I think, especially with a lot of the kind of LED light matte panels that are out now, that are definitely super useful for a lot of situations. Spill is one of the big issues, being able to try and get barn doors or flag and not have to roll out a bunch of black foil and kind of mash it around the edges and get it close, just to be able to be like, okay, real actual barn doors. I also think
And the Fresnel lens, yeah.
the size of the lens on this makes it really nice.
Right, so it's a little bit softer in general
It's
already.
softer, you get like, I mean, the fact that even flooded out, I can cover all of you,
Yeah.
instead of having to back it up really far and then bounce it so that it spreads enough. Like you can just have it close, but have a big enough face on it.
Right, and there are situations, maybe not for like every corporate video, but keying someone with a light that size with a Fresnel just hard, just directly at him, I know a lot of people that would seem like kind of,
A no-no?
yeah, there's cases where that's gonna look really good if you did it right. Like for certain sports applications, certain portraiture wants hard light. I'm not saying that I look good under hard light, or that this does, but there are cases with it, and in that case you would have this for harder shadows, whereas this is gonna basically always have softer shadows.
Like I don't think this is gonna look good here, but just to give you a sense of like if you want something really dramatic with it. And I think that's kind of something to speak to in terms of like trends across the industry, regardless of manufacturer. It's like if you're going to buy a set of lights, if you're going to rent a set of lights, it's just about bringing that flexibility to set instead of having to have a 5-ton grip truck with everything in it. And you're like, okay, we got to pull out the HMIs, those have to go back, the tungsten fixtures have to come out, okay, those have to go back, the Kinoflows have to come out. It's like, just load out once for your full day.
Yeah, and I would say for stage stuff, if this is going to be like the sun coming through the window, that sort of gag, it is nice to be able to just choose how much color you want, like how orange or how blue on the fly into eye versus having to like, you know, has anyone worked lighting crew or anything like that? Where you have to like A and B different types of gels and how long that takes. It's like, here's a little bit of blue. Okay, let's do a little bit less. It's like, you can never really tell. It's like 1/8 versus 1/4. If you guys have ever done that dance. Or orange versus CTS, it's like, you can do it if you have really good crews that are really fast, but this you can control with an iPad actually. We don't have that setup. but your gaffer, or the DP, you could just sit there and you can look at it. And this is something we've never really been able to do before. We don't have it set up here, but these lights really are.
And that's just
pretty
through
much the future.
standard DMX controllers and everything as well. It's again.
We'll get some. Some of those are going to be coming.
Being from Arri, everything's standardized, really straightforward.
Yeah.
Is there another S series that's like a 1x kind of shape?
There's a SC30, so it's literally half the size of that, and then there's also an S120, so
Which is
double the
huge.
length of that.
Yeah.
But it's great for like big product stuff.
You want to clip it on the back?
Yeah, and then this ballast also has a really nice little quick release plate on it. So this just comes in, clips down, you're set. Which is really nice to not have to drag that around all day, but also be able to remove it if you need to bring the light up really high. Yeah, these are both a good shoulder workout if you're carrying them around, I'm not gonna lie, but it's good for you.
Yeah, get the rolling stands.
Yeah.
Get the rolling stands. So so you guys could take 5, get some muffins. We're going to be
Where you guys are
right
standing.
there, and this L10 is going to go
Right there.
right here. So as long as you're not like right here, you're all set. And we'll be back in like 5 minutes.
Thank you guys for bearing with us for that little
How's
quick
this?
switch.
How's this? Is this awkward?
We're both here.
Is this awkward like this? Because I want to be in the camera with him for this
Oh, yeah,
part.
that's fine.
Okay. We're looking for one tall person, or someone that's not so tall that would be willing to stand on a chair, who can be on that light, and then 2 people, one on that light, and one on that light. You could be short for those ones. You. Which one do you want to do? You want to do the tall one? Oh, you're. Oh, shit. Okay, you got demoted. You got demoted.
For that guy.
Okay. So, it's kind of a lesson for like, what's your name?
Raj.
Raj. And what's your name?
Brian.
Brian, awesome. Have you guys ever used these before?
No.
Okay, maybe Harvey, you should be showing him. So, well, just because the controls of that one are slightly different.
I can help him with this one. Let me
So
frame him. Here
we're
we go.
in what's called HSI mode now.
Yes.
So that's hue, saturation, and intensity. Hue is the color, and there's a knob for that. Saturation is how intense the color is. There's a knob for that. And intensity is how bright it is, more or less. And each one has a knob. So let's start with this knob. You guys can't really see. I guess we can take this off. How does this pop off? So it's HSI, hue, saturation, intensity. I guess we'll just go in order. So this is the hue dial right in the middle, right? So this changes the color, right? The hue. So no longer gelling, none of that. Is that it? Is that all the colors? So it goes in, you can't see it, there's a close-up, there's a little dial. At the end, we'll have, everyone can come up and just check them out. So you're able to just dial in, I don't know the number of colors, there's a lot, right? There's a lot. So we'll go to a color that's easy to read the saturation of, perhaps something like this, kind of red-orange. And so this is the saturation all the way up.
Can you cycle through those again now that it's saturated?
Sure, yeah. So now that it's full saturation, we'll look at these colors. And this is pretty historic as far as us being able to do this so easily. This has been semi-possible with moving lights from like ChromaForce, ChromaQ, those type of companies like for events, but for the movie industry, we've never really had anything this easy and fun to deal with for lights. It's pretty cool. So that's the hue, that's the color, and this is the saturation, which I think is basically zero saturation is white, which we'll measure the color temperature again of what that is. I think it's something odd actually.
6 and change.
It's kind of odd actually, but we'll talk to Arri. But so this is dialing the saturation back in. This is about 50% saturation, and that's 100. And then of course, this is the intensity, the I of HSI, and that's just the brightness more or less. So we have these color tunability on this S60. It's the same on the S30
And the 120.
and the 120, which
And
is gigantic, and the Fresnels as well. So we showed in the first demo that these were daylight or tungsten or fluorescent with the plus minus green, but they're also basically like a million different gel colors with saturation and stuff that you basically can't do any other way except for event moving lights. Cool. Essentially, when you go into color mode, they turn into daylight sources. So you want your camera to be balanced to daylight if you want white to be white.
I think we're still at 61 for that.
I think it's 56 now. Yeah. So could you take a step forward?
Yep.
Cool. I should probably come higher with this, but I'm just going to up angle you for fastness. Okay. So that's intensity. Okay. So could you can we pan this one this way? A little bit more on him. And that's the intensity all the way up on that?
No, it is.
Aha. Okay, excellent. Great, so this is pretty standard portrait lighting for a studio. Actually, kind of works with the up angle for you. So this is using the tungsten lights, these LEDs, like they were just single color temperature lights where you couldn't change anything. But what we're going to do now is the fun part, and I've actually not been able to really do this before, is we're going to change the colors dynamically here. So can you turn the saturation to full on this one? Awesome. And can we turn those both off for now? Let's just look at just this light. Okay, so very cool. So that's intensity all the way up? So the red, so with color tunable LEDs, you lose a little bit of output. Like if you think about it, if you had an all daylight source, it's going to be all daylight LEDs, it's much brighter. There's a collection of different color LEDs in there, and the fading between them is how you get the different colors. Certain colors are going to be brighter than others. They try to balance it as much as possible, but that is one of the downsides of this. But we have cameras that are incredibly sensitive now in low light. What are we? We're at 320 ISO.
Yeah.
So we'll go back up to like a normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're at an okay exposure at 800 ISO. Am I even wide open on this? Yeah, okay. Oh yeah, let's stop down a little bit. So can you slowly just dial through some of the colors? Because you can check out the monitors, like the different options that are available with full saturation. So that's kind of like a yellow.
Green.
Going kind of green. Pretty cool to be able to do this right here. Considering like flipping gels. This is going to be a lot nicer if you're gaffing and your DP needs to be shown the gel before he chooses it, or her, that's completely cool. Or if the director or client, which is more likely, you're able to just put on the show of like, let's look at all these different colors, even if you end up back at white or something like that. Being able to do this as far as presentation for the DP or the director or client is an amazing good time. Turn on some techno music and yeah, they'll like it. So it's really cool. And then so we're back at that. Can you go through the saturation now? So we're going to slowly pull saturation out of this red. So we should be slowly returning back to white. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think
That gets way brighter.
I think that's impossible any other way. I don't think you can do saturation so much with gels. I mean, I guess you kind of can. There's like, if you guys know the Roscoe color gels, there's Roscoe 30, 60, 90. Is there a 120, something like that? That's essentially saturation, you know, changing those gels, but you don't have the amount of control that you have with this. Yeah, and when it goes daylight, it's definitely a little bit brighter. So can we put that back to pink? So we're going to go to like, I come from music videos. I've shot many. This is like a very 50 Cent club music video look. We're going to go to it. So full saturation.
Yep.
Awesome. And let's find like a pink purple in there.
Go the other way, maybe?
You just keep spinning it until you find it.
I do also think there's like a party mode preset on these where it'll just like cycle through all the colors.
Yeah. There's a lot of tricks to this that we still don't know. So what's the number on the hue?
262.
So that's 262. So you would just start to memorize these as you're lighting with these. You're like 262 on the hue set on the hue. That's the color. You know. You can program it to think like gels if you want to match other lights that have gels on them. But ideally, you're going to just start working in the Arri ecosystem. You're just going to start memorizing these hue values, and that's the colors. So you kind of forget about gel, Congo blue, and all that. That stuff's really fun. Not really, but you just have numbers to lights. That's okay too. So let's strike these two rim lights now. So let's go full intensity, full saturation. Yeah, it takes a second to come up, right? What were we doing? 50 Cent? Yeah, we're going to do some in the club lights. So we're starting with purple, and let's find a green. Can you pick a green? Oh, you did it. That was pretty good.
Whatever that last one was.
So what's your hue number?
Right now it's 189.
189. Could you match the 189? You look pretty good. Yeah?
I feel like that saturation's down a little.
And your saturation and intensities are both full on those?
Yeah.
Awesome. Am I rolling this? Cool. So this we've changed into club lighting instantly. And I like this look a lot. You'll see this a lot. I was joking before and I'm going to do it again for the camera that all we have to add back here, I can't see the monitor, is people dancing and some club stuff, right? So, and we have a club look.
A little haze.
Yeah, a lot of haze.
Yeah.
Dancing, cars, you know, whatever you want. So can you guys get on the hue wheels and just go nuts on them? Just don't break them, but just like spin them around, like club light it up, right? So you're not doing this with pretty much any other light at this point. And can you do it too? We're getting stupid here. So like, it's like a police club light. I don't know.
This is definitely gonna give me a headache, but yeah, it
But
works.
so we won't give you a seizure or anyone else. So we could stop let's go back to what we were. So, with these tools, it's really up to you to be creative now. This is a really solid lighting setup. You could use this for everything. I'll just tell you that much. As far as commercial music videos, this setup you could do for everything. There's a lot more to do. I could hit the background. There's more. But it's up to you and your creativity to pick the colors, to change it, And from just this simple setup with these sky panels, you can do like an infinite number of looks. So let's do another demo. Let's spin these lights both at the wall, please. So now we're going to look at coloring a cyc wall. Yeah. So let's make this one. Can we pull all the saturation out of it for a second? Yeah. So we've now painted this wall with light, right? So that's saturation all the way up. So let's look at a blend, a gradient. So you stay pink. Could you go another color? Can you just start scrolling through until we find something interesting? That looks kind of cool. Is that green? That's kind of a green. Can you find like a greener green, like less blue? Yeah, that's pretty cool. So we're still rolling, and we have this very commercial beauty lighting setup right here, guys. If you're wondering how a lot of beauty music videos and commercials go down, I don't know, who knows what a breezy is here? Everyone heard of like the breezy umbrellas? Really expensive, it's your whole lighting budget to get them. This is the same thing. It's not as sexy, the client doesn't love it as much. You're gonna get like, that light's like, I think that light's like $2,000 a day to rent, something like that. You're gonna get a very similar effect if you place this the right way. And it's right over camera, it feels awkward. You just wanna put it right here. You key this way, this is beauty in music videos, like 101. There's a little bit more to do here. But I mean, I think this is looking pretty commercially here. What's nice is if you get used to keying like this is a pretty small setup. If this becomes all of a sudden like 10 actors and you're in a stage that's 50 feet wide, you do this with a 20 by with a much bigger light and you just back it up. Like if you start to get used to thinking this way, this light setup works as you get smaller and much bigger. Very common for a big beauty job is to make this 40 feet by 20 feet. And you bounce into it, and you can key with this same style lighting. It'll look just like this, but for like 20 people. And if you back it up enough and you do it the right way, they can actually walk around in it, and you'll retain this beauty lighting, but for a much bigger setup.
I think the other point to have with these lights, again, you've got the color flexibility, but you also have the flexibility in terms of the hardness or the softness of your light. Like again, hard tungsten light through a grid, really soft. Same with these in terms of changing your diffusion. So you really get a huge amount of flexibility for just 3 lights.
I was in New York, and we'd done a lot of music videos, the directors and I, but we still weren't like working all the time. And what we started to do is we would take real jobs, and on the weekends, if we rented the gear on Friday, we'd keep it for the weekend, and we'd shoot spec music videos. And this exact setup, I could give you the link to it, not with sky panels. I wish we had sky panels back then. We didn't have it. We went into the director's apartment. We used a white wall that was like this big. And we did this exact same lighting setup, and we shot like 5 spec music videos, just changing the colors, changing the wideness, giving them props, just having it be really simple studio stuff. And those spec music videos got us all commercial work a little bit down the road. So if you're looking to do stuff to build your reel, I think this is a really solid place for a lot of DPs and directors. If you want to move into like pop, beauty, commercials, music videos, communicate to the people that you can do this, do the beauty lighting, change the colors for music videos. If you're doing music videos and you like this type of look, really simple with sky panels. And if you want to be economical, try to rent them with people and just shoot a bunch of stuff with it. It's really simple. You set it up with like any white wall, and you can shoot a lot of different looks by just changing the LED lights. What we would love for you guys to do is we'll leave the camera up and running. If you want to be in it, that would be cool. Maybe I'll put you in the YouTube edit. But we really encourage you to come up and actually, like you guys were doing, just turn the knobs, just play with it, just do the LEDs. If you have any questions about the red camera, I'm sure Harvey's cool to just chill it over there. Yeah.
You said this is like a pretty classic like beauty shot type thing. I've also seen a lot of like commercial shoots where it's offset. What would be, is it just a creative choice on which one you do, or like what would you go into a set looking to do, whether it's like direct on a subject or offset?
Yeah, so it kind of comes to the art direction and the direct, like are you the DP or the director in this case?
Yeah, I'm just
in general.
Going into a shoot, like you said, this is like a pretty classic thing. Like, what would be your like internal decision? Because obviously most clients won't really know the difference between that subtle of a change.
The difference is symmetry.
Okay.
right? So this is a symmetrical lighting setup. So I'm just like right here, my face is lit symmetrically. If that's gonna work, like art direction wise and bigger picture of what that brand's trying to do, then that's gonna work. In beauty, in a lot of cases, like just like middle of the road beauty, not high end fashion, that sort of stuff, symmetry is the way to go. Like it's like makeup, you know, it's like just straight on symmetry, beautiful face, that sort of thing. Sports, symmetry is very strong. You typically, as far as key and come to the side a little bit, we become asymmetrical. So now we're picking a side of the face to light more than the other. One side goes dark. It's a darker look. Even if it's a pretty bright setup, if you come from the side, you're making one side darker, it's going to change the tone of it. And so that's up to, depending on the size of your job, the director, the creative director, the director or the DP. It depends on who's making that call. But I think the way to think about it is this is symmetrical, right? I think that makes people look good instantly, really quickly. From the side, you have to be a little bit more careful with their face and that sort of thing. This is going to look good pretty much for anybody. As you come to the side, you have to really make sure that that's going to work tonally and for the person you're photographing. Versus this with one more light from the bottom is how like every beauty commercial I've ever seen happens. Just want to thank Rural Boston Camera. Awesome guys. Thanks for bringing the sky panels out to Harvey and Wendy. And this video, we're going to try to cut something out of it and put it on YouTube later. And we'll love if you guys took lots of Instagram photos. And thanks so much, guys. So let's give it for everybody. Thank you. This looks like an Apple commercial. Yeah. We just shot a fucking awesome looking Apple commercial.